first generation of kids to grow up always being online, which by the way are my kids. They have never experienced dial-up or anything like that. They've always had always on.
Phones, tablets, computers. Most kids have access to at least one of these daily.
There are now people in their mid to getting on to advanced teens who have never known, obviously, a world without the web.
But are those electronic devices making our kids nearsighted?
And as a society, we get anxious. Parents are very worried that this device is going to stunt their children's social growth.
Have they developed strange thumbs?
That it's going to keep them from getting up and moving.
Do they have peculiar ways of talking and listening? Do their eyes glaze over when they have to concentrate for more than 30 seconds?
That somehow this is going to disrupt childhood.
The big fear is that we'll end up with a generation of people who are very good at using the net and very good at finding information and processing information very quickly, but don't really have any capacity for contemplativeness or for concentration or for deep engagement with information.
So I've now worked at PBS Kids for more than 15 years, and my work there is focused on harnessing the power of technology as a positive in children's lives. I believe that as a society, we're missing a big opportunity. We're letting our fear and our skepticism about these devices hold us back from realizing their potential in our children's lives.
Because we're also proud of our youth. We think our youth and our childhood was somehow, if not perfect, it was, even if it was imperfect, it made us suffer. How dare these children now not suffer the way I did? They should be having the kind of life I did, made to read, made to do this. They should not have this freedom, this access. Or if they do, while I can approve of it, I ought to suggest that it's dangerous, that it's going to go wrong.
There's a massive generational difference in how people see the web, and that's one of the things that I find most interesting and exciting, you know, not only just between classic generational breakdowns, but much more split and atomized fragments of early 20s to late 20s to mid 20s. It's more about kind of the stage of life you're at as well, I think, and where you are in the education cycle. You know, if I look now at how 8, 9, 10-year-olds use the web, it's completely different to how, you know, somebody aged 18 would use it, completely different how I would use it again.
I'm a little nervous about drawing a sharp distinction between what we call, Generation Web or digital natives and older people, adults, because what I think that's that lets adults off the hook, and they can say, as they always say, this younger generation, they're, going to hell or whatever. And really, the effects of the internet, I think, are the same on adults as on younger kids and younger adults. And if you look at the statistics, it's people in their later 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s who are online much more of the time than, say, teenagers. So I would hate to have the focus on Generation Web, make it seem as though older people aren't affected by the internet, because I think they are. And I think what we see in young people, the distractedness, the inability to, read more than 2 pages at a time, is probably coming to characterize older people in every generation as well.
Let's get real about this. Connection is what humans crave. It's what we are all about. It's something that separates us from animals. It even comes before the fact that we have language, because the language is an example of a, if you like, a neural technology we have created to answer this need for connection. We are the social animal par excellence.
Finding a community online, and this is one of the more powerful narratives of the internet, right? Your queer kids who can actually find people like them, who can support them.
They have a global awareness that was not present in my generation. They really feel as if this is one world. They also feel as if they are always connected to everyone else. There is a feeling of being connected. that I did not have in my generation. And I think that's beautiful.
We are constantly in need of connecting with people for friendship, love, sex, knowledge, growth, enmity, territoriality, all the imperatives that drive us as human beings. And we've created villages and towns to help us do that, and roads, and now we've created something else that allows us to do it even more.
The kind of glue that it's brought to us that we haven't had before is the glue of obsession, the glue of fascination, the glue of passion about something in particular. And so I think people who maybe before were lost or felt alone in their own little interests now are able to really connect with people who share what they share, this fascination with something in particular. And that particularness has been amplified and magnified. And that is the glue that I think brings a lot of people together that was not present before.
Think about what happens when you were doing that with your friends, right? You were there, you were joking around, you were gossiping, you were flirting, you were kind of consuming culture and consuming merchandise, but it was part of this all-encompassing social experience. The same thing is actually happening fully online, right? So all of those everyday practices, the gossip, the flirting, the joking around, that's taking place online. And it's taking place online with the same kinds of friends that took place in the mall, right? You met up with all the kids at school, but you also saw the kids at the neighboring school, and you're like, hey, who are you? What's that about? That same thing is where we're seeing it play out. So young people who are engaged online, they're primarily engaged with the people they already know. They're friends from school, they're friends from after-school activities, they're friends from around the community.
Well, do you find your child or teen spending more time with friends on Facebook or Instagram, Snapchat? Are there any others I missed?
You covered the basics,
yeah,
I think,
yeah.
for sure. Twitter,
I
yes.
say Twitter, yeah, Periscope.
They're online,
yeah.
seems like more than they are with their real-life friends, right?
Yeah.
And it's younger and younger these days.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the idea that Robert Putnam had of bowling alone, that the kind of social clubs and volunteer effort that was really kind of a part of America, he suggests has gone, I think has been replaced by a different kind of social networking, a different kind of clubbiness. So it's true that those old versions have gone and are missing. And I think we can regret that. But at the same time, there's a new variety, a new dimension of social interaction that was not present before. And that is the dimension that we're exploring now. That has not really been possible before. It's not been possible to have 100 friends dedicated to one really obscure little fascination. And now that's everyday occurrence. And so for many people, this kind of new club, this kind of bowling, is really a revelation and a great gift.
We have a sense of visibility that we've never seen before. So we're used to being able to see a certain group of kids in certain places, right? The mall, we can see kids hanging out with their friends that way. But as adults, we don't typically have a really good sense of all the kids and a good sense of where they are and what they're doing when they're with their friends.
Eu uso a internet praticamente durante todo o dia.
I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr.
En Facebook tengo 200 amigos.
500.
828.
1000.
2000. Tengo unos 5000. Todos son conocidos. I don't know all my Facebook friends.
Some of them strangers. 50% companies party.
I'm just curious, like they are beautiful or they are handsome.
Je m'en fous quoi. S'il veut parler, ben moi je parle quoi.
Parfois, ils me demandent de sortir avec eux.
Oui, envoyer photos nues.
Eu vou bloquear a pessoa.
Do you think the internet is a dangerous place?
No.
Yes. One of the issues around the privacy questions that are now being raised are, have we taught children how to be safe online enough? And are we, aware enough, if we've come at this later with technology, of all the different ways that information is used? So there's definitely a piece of education that needs to underpin all of the developments that are happening in technology.
what's going on online is, in many ways, it's youth space. So they're there, they're goofing around as though they're there just with their friends. And so what ends up happening is you can get a sense of what's going on really in broad sweeps. And it isn't just the kids like the kids in your community, but the kids who are in different communities all around the world with all sorts of different ideas of what is normative behavior, right? And that what is normal, what is common really differs. And so we see these behaviors online and we're like, oh my gosh, it's radically different today than it ever was before. It's not really.
When I read this study, I started thinking about how rarely parents of preschoolers actually talk to kids about the content of what they're playing and what they're watching. And so I decided to try it with my 4-year-old. I said, "Were you playing a car game earlier today?" And Benjamin perked up and said, "Yes, and did you see that I made my car out of a pickle? It was really hard to open the trunk." This hilarious conversation about what was fun in the game and what could have been better continued all the way to school that morning.
If a person is brought up looking at screens and using the web and being bombarded by information, then the question is, will the brain circuitry necessary to do things like deep reading, deep thinking, will those circuits ever even come into being? Will they be wired for that kind of thinking, or will they be wired completely for internet type of thinking, for taking in lots of information very, very quickly?
I'm not particularly negative or pessimistic about the social qualities, the linguistic qualities, the concentration qualities of Generation Web, as they're called. I honestly believe that if you were to go back into the 1920s and take an ordinary, semi-educated 15-year-old and place him next to an ordinary, semi-educated 15-year-old now, you would find the one now knows more, understands more, is more socially confident, is more aware of the rest of the world, is more able and more adept at research. Where people make their fundamental error and criticize all this and think it's a danger and that it's reducing our capacity to act as proper human beings, is they think it's all this. You either sit in front of a screen of some kind, or tapping away all your life, going lol, and being childish and not writing in proper English sentences, or you sit in an old-fashioned study with books and you read properly and you engage properly and you go for walks. Well, I do both, and most people do both. It is not one or the other.
I'm not here to suggest to you that all digital media is great for kids. There are legitimate reasons for us to be concerned about the current state of children's content on these screens. And it's right for us to be thinking about balance. Where do screens fit against all the other things that a child needs to do to learn and to grow? But when we fixate on our fears about it, we forget a really major point. And that is that kids are living in the same world we live in, the world where the grown-ups check their phones more than 50 times a day. Screens are a part of children's lives. And if we pretend that they aren't, or if we get overwhelmed by our fear, kids are never going to learn how and why to use them. What if we start raising our expectations for this media? What if we start talking to kids regularly about the content on these screens? What if we start looking for the positive impacts that this technology can have in our children's lives? That's when the potential of these tools can become a reality. Thank you.